we have a sense of reality that is presented to us on the very first day that we go and we visit a doctor about our symptoms. We all know what our symptoms are. I could go through them, but I think that would be a waste of our time because you know what they are. You read about them in other groups. You complain about them every day to yourself, to your family, to your doctor, in other groups. You have gone to a professional for some direction, for some relief. And you are taking the advice of someone who has an educational background, first in anatomy and physiology, and second in chemical orchestral leadership. What is that? Chemical orchestral leadership. Break that down. Pharmaceutical drugs are much like a chess game. They will work for some people, they won't work for others. They have to play in their own playground with their own friends. This is really breaking it down. And every one of them has a function. Many of them don't just perform the function intended, they create additional side effects. There are circumstances where there is no pharmaceutical to apply, and so we've taken a square peg pharmaceutical. When I say we, the medical world, not we, they have taken a square peg pharmaceutical and a sledgehammer and bashed the shit out of it until it fit into a round hole. Visualize that for a second. You've got a piece of wood with dents and all kinds of chips broken out of it, and it looks like it almost went through a wood chipper. Imagine those side effects, the dynamic of that occurring within you. You have been given a drug, a gabapentin, a Neurontin, a Lyrica, that is designed to stop people from having seizures. And those people who are in the world of producing drugs have convinced the Food and Drug Administration that if you have a problem that can't be fixed by drugs, then they can give you other drugs, the aforementioned, to create, if possible, the perspective for you that your problem doesn't really exist or it isn't so bad. But they're not solving the problem. And your medical professional, whose education of anatomy and physiology knows better, but for some reason isn't practicing it, and I can give you a handful of reasons, first of which is there's no money in it, that there are other ways in which to coerce the symptom or the problem to become tolerable or to make it go away almost altogether. And so putting your life in the hands, and when I say your life, your quality of life in the hands of someone who's mishandling it, because now you have other issues that you didn't have before, and you have addictions even, which you didn't have before. And you are now sitting in a situation where you're not being made aware that there are alternative options that actually have an impact. And because of that, you go searching on the internet and you find a little of this information here, a little of this information there, or you find a bunch of people who are stuck in the rut and just talking about being stuck in the rut. And they're getting little bits and pieces of information. But because the world is full of fakers and thieves, they'll tend to say, yeah, it's bullshit. If it doesn't come from my doctor, why should I believe it? I say go back to your childhood. You ran where you slipped and fell and skinned your knee, and you didn't run to the hospital when you skinned your knee. You may have cried about it. You stared at it. You may have washed it. But what happened with it? The boo-boo went away. How did it do that? The body healed itself. How unique is that? This is not what we have, peripheral neuropathy, is not a progressive disease unless your body isn't fighting it, unless your body doesn't have the tools to fight it. If you take your mindset as the only mindset that you have to try and hide the symptoms through medications, then you are going to get worse. You're going to get worse from the side effects from those medications. You're not going to encourage your body to do what it does naturally, which is heal. And you will be in a frame of mind eventually where you've given up. Going over to pain management, make things worse for you, create a new addiction. You're depressed, so now we have to give you depression medications. And now you've gone from a straight thinking person to a person who's uncomfortable, in pain, and drugged up. This is not a way to live. And when I got to the point where I said this is not a way to live, I could see at the end of the rainbow only darkness and a brick wall. And I've brought these up a handful of times, and I'll do it again just because it's worthy. My gabapentin led to Lyrica. My Lyrica led to having to go to pain management. My pain management led to 75 milligrams of oxycodone per day and 80 milligrams of extended release OxyContin per day. And that led to reliance on that. But that didn't work either. What is that? imagine having to take that, which your insurance company paid $35 for, and they gave you 30 of them. Imagine having to take that in order to make a number 2. And this is one of the side effects from pain management. And now you go ahead and you stick this in yourself, and 10 minutes later, you're supposed to have a result. What happens when you don't have a result? When you're done freaking out and wondering if you should call the doctor who gave you this, you say to yourself, there has to be another way. And there is. And having the mindset of just being locked into one perspective, and that's the perspective that your medical professional gave you. That is not something that is providing any of you, and myself included, a rainbow at the end of the tunnel. Rather, a brick wall. I decided I wasn't going out like Elvis Presley on a toilet. So I opened up my mind and I began to read and I began to learn. And I began to apply the things that I learned about until a recipe, the protocol, came about. First thing I had to deal with was, how am I going to the bathroom? And lo and behold, inside of Google Scholar, I learned about the magic of coconut. And 2 coconuts later, and maybe 3 days later, I was all clear. I didn't need a pill. I didn't need to inject. All I did was use logic and read and apply. And there was a result, and it was a positive result. As I progressed in the development of the protocol, I was still on all the meds. I still had the continuing issue of being constipated. So I was probably consuming 3 or 4 coconuts a week until I detoxed once the protocol started having its effect. The point here is that there isn't one reality. This isn't a painful, permanent event in your life, which is what your medical professionals would have you believe. There is a way away from this, and it's called becoming a slave, more or less, a human slave, to your own existence, to your own thought processes. And rather than taking on the oh dear, oh my, this is the end of life as I used to know it, because I've been at this now for a year, I've been at this now for 6 months, the doctor has these pills and these words, all we can do is try to make you feel more comfortable. That is not the end of your story. That is an obstacle. It's not a brick wall. You're in life, you're in an obstacle course. And every obstacle has a pathway over it, through it, or around it. In any of those cases, an obstacle is not an impediment to your forward movement. It's not. If that were the case, mankind would not have gotten to where it is today. Whether you believe it has, in every aspect, gone where it ought to have, that's a different story. Obviously, it hasn't. But in this particular individual case, it is entirely up to you to learn that there is a different way. There is a way around the obstacle of neuropathy. Now, we're not curing it. No, we are not curing it. It's going to be nagging. We have it. That's it. But imagine if you used a typical pain scale from a 1 to 10. What is everyday life without neuropathy like? A pain scale of 1? Do you have annoyances in your life? Do you have issues? Nothing's ever perfect. Is it a 2? Imagine being in a position where your neuropathy symptoms have dropped from a 10 level down to a tolerable, livable 1, 2, or 3 at worst. We have members who are on the protocol who at any given time will forget, for the most part, that they even have neuropathy. Life has returned to them so solidly. How did they do it? I've used the terms before: paradigm shift. Kind of a couple big words. Well, shift isn't. It's your mindset. It is your perspective and your level of perseverance to accomplish the goal. Well, how long does it take? We're all so goddamn impatient. I like to see light in the room when I turn on a switch. Doctor, I have a tummy ache. Can I have something to make it go away long term? Well, here, take this stuff. Oh, down the road we learned that it's very bad for you. Oh, I'll bet there was another way to get around that. And there was. But you weren't enlightened to it. And the unfortunate reason for that is, particularly in this country, medicine has become a business. So what I want you to do, what I want you to think about is you're not stuck. You're not in a rut. You have obstacles that you need to navigate, and you can. And the way that you navigate them is to read, to watch, to listen, to research, and to take the steps that will enable you to navigate past, through, and to the other side of those obstacles. I said it's not a cure. I said you can tolerate a pain level of 1, 2, or 3, or an annoyance level of 1, 2, or 3. You are wanting to accomplish reaching what is tagged here as a new normal. Everybody's new normal is different. Dealing with short fiber neuropathy, SFN, PN, it doesn't matter. The body still heals. We're all made of the same stuff. The body still utilizes the same vitamins and minerals and water to make all of its systems function the way that they should. This is a matter of saying, let's leave this problem to nature and let's learn about how nature can solve this problem. What is the new normal? The new normal is sensitivity in the fingers. I don't get burning. I don't get lightning bolt shocks out of nowhere. These are things long past. These are things that the protocol wiped out. My feet aren't asleep with pins and needles driving me crazy or burning, but they're desensitized and they are very sensitive to cold. That's part of the new normal. I tolerate it. It's a pain in the ass, but it's not intolerable. It's just a pain in the ass. And what would life be if we didn't have any pains in our backside? I have a broken tailbone that happened to me back in 1992. I can't do a damn thing about it. It is more annoying and more painful than any neuropathy symptom that still remains from my diagnosis in 2006. What does that say? That says I ought to try and find a solution for my broken tailbone that did not heal properly. And there is no solution, unfortunately, for that. But at the end of the day, here's a remnant of the cold, excuse me. At the end of the day, I know that there are certain things that will be triggers and increase the sensitivity of my consciousness to my neuropathy symptoms. What are those triggers? Sugars, stress, frustration, excessive amounts of activity. There's the new normal. When I sit down in the evening to take my meds, my supplements and my meds, there's almost a day that doesn't go by that when opening the cap of one of the many, many bottles I open, the cap doesn't fly out of my hand and end up on the floor. We call that the dropsies. It's a pain in the ass. But you know what? That event, if it happens once or twice in an evening, an occasional evening, not at all if I'm smart enough to keep my hands over the bed when I'm opening a bottle, that trade-off sure beats the hell out of burning, excruciating burning, pain deep inside my bones. I took charge of my care plan. I made the choice that I wasn't going to listen to the doctor who was making me feel worse. I learned from reading and from watching that this has to be one of my best friends. People who, particularly us elderly, people who don't drink enough water, have major issues in their life. Forget about having neuropathy. You need to drink a lot of water just naturally so that all of your body parts function properly. But if you're supplementing vitamins, you need to drink extra water because you don't need to have all of those vitamins in you all of those minerals in you. You need to make them available for your body to utilize and then discard the rest. That's where the water comes in. So the lesson is, quite simply, if you're not happy where you're at in your quality of life, take control of your care plan. It is safe to listen to strangers, particularly those who have collected the knowledge base, have applied it, have influenced others to apply it, and everybody has results. And it's not the kind of results that we had when we followed our doctor's advice for this particular issue with our bodies. Think in terms of, this is your goal. Your goal is not to be taking these meds that you depend on. You depend on them because your doctor has told you you should depend on them. And those meds are messing with your brain and putting you in a position where you more comfortably tolerate the problems. Well, wouldn't it be nice to reduce the problems instead of having to drug up in an attempt to comfortably tolerate them? I think the answer to that question is yes.
We are houseplants. We require water, sunshine, and nutrition to thrive. Healing does not discriminate. If your body is prepared to do its work, it doesn't really care what work needs to be done, and it only has one place of employment. It works full-time, overtime, and requires the simplest mix of compensation, the greatest component of which is your frame of mind. As for rolling back your symptoms and restoring your quality of life, the Protocol works. To find out how the Protocol 525 can change your life, join Solutions to Peripheral Neuropathy Pain and Discomfort, a Facebook support group. To access more videos from our Protocol Learning Series archive, visit facebook.com/groups/SPNPD.